Good evening, 49er faithful. Damn, it has been too long since we have been here, but it is Thursday, July 20th. The rookies are back at camp. The 49ers are going to be back at camp in totality in the very near future, and Randon and I are back. Faithful 49er scribes, whatever the hell you want to call us, here to spread joy, wisdom, all sorts of good stuff. Randon, a pleasure to be back. A pleasure to have you here on the program and be talking Niners, my friend.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, man. I've missed you, brother.
I have missed you as well and missed those in the chat. Raphael 562 Niners always coming in. Sneakerhead here on the channel, dropping it in the chat saying good evening to myself, to Randon, to the Sneakerheads, and everyone. To anybody tuning in early here. It's been a hot minute since Randon and I were on. The algorithm has forgot who the fuck we are. So please do hit the like button if you want to amplify the signal, if you want more folks there in the chat to get it going back and forth. We got a few things to talk about, man, but it's been such a while. I want to say to the sneakerheads, to the faithful, to those that follow the channel, I always appreciate when people reach out to check in when it's been a little while since we've been on the air. And I know that there can be that sort of unknown because it's not as if you get a regular update as to what's going on in Randon or I's lives. I will say this here, that, I mean, I always deal with things on my own, right? Too much stress, work, relationship stuff. My mental health is never in a fantastic spot. I am always cognizant of wanting to be back speaking to other faithful. And honestly, in getting on here, sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. Know from the bottom of my heart that it is my best faith effort to be on here with all of you doing this because I freaking love it. I absolutely love the camaraderie, the fact that we get to interact, the questions that come our way. So I just wanted to take a moment and say that. We had the break while the Niners were on break. Now that they're back to camp, we're going to be headed into preseason. We're going to be headed into the regular season. You can be goddamn sure that you're going to see more on the channel here. Both Randon and I and other guests coming on as well. So wanted to put that out there before we get into our content. Randon, how the hell have you been over the last month?
Pretty fantastical, man. Not doing too bad. Just working a lot. Just booked my vacation going to the old across the pond to Portugal and Spain here in October.
Nice.
So I'm going to have some fun there. Hopefully come back with a Latin wife, maybe just 3 weeks there, throw the fishing rod out, maybe come up with one. Otherwise, we might be doing Between Two Beards Portugal style. It'll have to be 2 a.m. in my time frame there, but glad to get it done. Other than that, man, not too bad. Just enjoying hockey royalty. That pod is going great. So for who followed that, we're live and kicking. But man, I've really missed talking Niners with you, man. So it's good. It's good. You're getting my fix in. You're getting my fix in, and then yeah. I appreciate it, man. How have you been?
I have been all right. I've been all right, man. A lot of work stuff going on. Definitely feeling pressure from that. But a new relationship going on. All the fun that comes with that. And definitely have dealt with mental health shit. Like, I don't even try to hide it anymore because I just think it's healthier if we talk about it. Like, I go through phases, dude, where it gets dark, like for no good reason. I got so many good things going on in my life right now, and yet picking up the goddamn MacBook to just say what's up to fellow 49er fans can be daunting, man. And it's wild to me. When I go through it, when I'm in the middle of it, I just don't understand it. And when I get on the other side of it and look back, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me? Like, why do I go through that? And certainly this time around, it coincided with a dead period for the 49ers and excitement around a new relationship. So it all became sort of this perfect storm. And yet, as I'm here in front of the camera talking to people, I know this is where I need to be. I know that on a weekly basis, doing these shows, interacting with people like Alan, who's coming in the chat here, it gets me to a better place. Like, it's something that I got to focus on. Alan Eliza coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob and Random, I meant to reach out, but life has gotten in the way. I know that feeling. Love you guys, and wants to get a chance on the call-in show. I can't wait for the call-in show to come in. For some reason, StreamYard's cutting off the ends of my comments. There it is. There it is. Any chance of a call-in show? Hell yeah, there's a chance of it. Alan, we're going to make it happen. I will put out a poll that lets you pick when you want to make that happen. All right, let's talk 49ers because that's what people are here for. They are here to hear about the San Francisco 49ers. And we got to get into a little bit of speculation here because we still don't have concrete news. That starts next week. I'm very excited about it. But Randon, when we talk about the position groups from 2022 to 2023, 2022 was a stacked roster. You could say to yourself, how do you get better when you already have that much talent on your team? Well, I was reading a great article from The Athletic talking about, well, you go for big swings. The Javon Hargrave swing was a big one and one of the only ways to upgrade because you don't want to overpay for someone who's not top at their position. That feels like a quality move. But now you have to evaluate. Well, 2022 is gone. Here we are at 2023. They made a couple of big swings. They made some draft picks, although none in the first or second round, obviously. Which of these position groups do you feel got better this year? And which ones do you think got worse?
Let's start with the negative first. Actually, no, let's flip it around. Let's go positive. We're back. Let's go. Let's pump up the jams. Tight ends. Everybody loves a good tight end. People doing squats, wearing tight shorts, but I'm talking about the guys on the field here. And everybody knows George Kittle is numero uno, right? He's got the headbanger mullet thing going on, hot wife, got his own football field in his backyard, doing it. He's throwing a party for himself. He's got the Kittle Olympics or something going on this weekend. So cheers to that guy. But outside of George Kittle, you had nobody. Yeah, no offense to Warner or Dwelly, like they weren't cutting it. And
nope.
The Niners went out and drafted two guys. I think the depth for the tight end room is a lot deeper. They got cheaper, which I like in that aspect. Finding value in those positions,
right? And
it allows them to throw two darts at the board. One is our third rounder, Cameron, and the other one in the later rounds to be able to see if we can get a guy to emerge as a legit number two option. I think a lot of fans say, Kittle blocks too much. He was running like 80-something% of routes. So he's out there running routes, but you just need another guy to back it up. Kittle hasn't always been the healthiest in his career. He devotes day and night to being the best person he can be. Obviously, he put out his own hype video the other day with him running routes shirtless. I know plenty of women retweeted that out there. I almost did myself. But I really think that the Niners are looking for additional weapons on the cheap, right? Christian McCaffrey restructured his contract. He's going to be making double digits. You have both receivers going into the high parts of their team's contracts, and then now you have Kittle making more money. So they need some more options outside of the heavy hitters that can maybe step up. And tight ends don't normally do that this year. I just like the addition to the roster from a standpoint of the franchise.
I think you're spot on with this one, right? They added significant competition. The competition that they added has a large upside. And one of your favorite points that you made so eloquently is they are there on the cheap. Not as though the money for Ross Dwelly or Charlie Warner was big money, but when you get tight up against the cap, as the 49ers are going to be in 2024, in 2025, every dollar matters. And you have to start looking for those ways in which you can shave a little bit off of the salary cap. So to me, this is you added to the depth and you have potential breakout stars there now. Whereas before, I don't know that anyone was legitimately predicting a huge leap for Charlie Warner or Ross Dwelly. Yes, there was always hope, myself included, that Ross Dwelly would begin to show more of what he shows in the preseason with his catch ability, catch radius on the field in the regular season. But towards the end of last year, he wasn't even out there and active, right? Charlie Warner was there on game days. So because of that fact, it did feel like the Niners had to upgrade there. Obviously, we won't know that until we get into preseason and regular season games. It sure feels like they have at least added to competition, if not made the room substantially better. And in doing both of those things, managed to get cheaper. So even if they just up the competition, even if only one of the rookies makes the roster, you're still looking at a cost savings for the Niners. I think you have to view that as better. So I'm going to go ahead and agree with you on that point. Good, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. I appreciate it.
I agree with the gentleman from Texas. Alan Elizer coming. No, wait, it was Dr. Jaspreet I was bringing in. Dr. Jaspreet saying, Rob, I missed the show. It's been a while. He got engaged. He moved to another state. Life has happened. Saw this was happening and ran over to my laptop. I appreciate that. We love having people here in the show. Great to see folks jumping in, familiar faces. Always want to say hello. Ian Sharp back in the building says, need another offensive threat at tight end. Hopefully one of the rookies. Certainly we weren't anticipating it from any of the gentlemen on the roster as we went through. Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly. Although Dwelly does show those flashes. All right. Zolksy Williams coming in. This is the year. We got close too many times, and we definitely got the talent. I believe this could be the year as well. The 49ers are primed for it, but we'll get into predictions like that later on in the summer. I'm going to start out positive as well here, and then we'll just go negative. And probably for the rest of the show, we'll be like, all right, from here on out, just negative. No, it's going to be a good one. Positive for me as far as getting better, safety. And people are going to jump on this one for me because I'm adding a qualifier. If you technically look at the depth chart for 2022, Jimmy Ward is going to be listed as one of the starting safeties. And I think if you include him, then my point doesn't land quite as solidly. However, as we all know, he became the de facto nickel cornerback. And therefore, I'm taking him out of the safety room. So I'm looking at 2022 as Talanoa Hufanga, Tayshaun Gibson, George Odom, and Tavarius Moore. You take that same room in 2023, you still have the same two starters. You still have George Odom, your stud on special teams, and a backup safety. But Ji'Ayir Brown steps in for Tavarius Moore. And to me, that's a clear upgrade at the safety position. The question then becomes, does special teams take a little bit of a hit with that? Do they use Ji'Ayir Brown on special teams, or do they try to get him involved in more three safety sets? Is there even a competition early on? So this one for me is a clear upgrade, especially with the way the coaches have been glowing about him to this point. I really want to see some tape. I want to see what everybody is talking about in preseason and then into the regular season.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's an upgrade regardless of where you classify Jimmy Ward. I think not in the sense of talent. You know, I talk about value in the terms of roster construction. Obviously, Jimmy Ward, one of the best talented safeties, super versatile. That's why they put him in the slot, even against his will. But you're taking a guy that was, making several $1 million to a third round pick. You're getting extreme value there. You're also having Gibson, who had multiple interceptions, come back and still on the cheap for what he produces at that level. And Tig Brown might be a guy that we're looking at past week 6, past week 8, where he takes that mantle and runs with it. And you're talking about a guy who's putting on tape in the playoffs over Tayshaun Gibson. I mean, not that I don't like the player of Tayshaun Gibson. I thought it was a great sign. I think they needed to make that signing. But if Tig Brown is ready, man, you got to let the young guy roll and not be afraid to make that move. And if Gibson gets cut in camp because the young guy is throwing it out, I get it. I understand it. I just don't think that'll happen right away. I think it'll be a soft close, but I think you're right. I think the depth there is incredible, and he's not afraid to hit people. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him on special teams. That's how young guys get in the roster and get some playing time is cracking the skulls on the punt return.
Absolutely. You got to be out there throwing your body around, showing that you're willing to earn a spot on special teams. I'm with you. I don't think that Tayshaun Gibson is offset on the roster. I believe that this is a slow transition, slow burn, much like you saw with Talanoa Hufanga coming in. They found uses for him as a rookie, which I am positive they will for Ji'Ayir Brown, probably even more so than they did for Talanoa Hufanga. But I would expect the true transition, barring any type of an injury happening, to actually occur next offseason. And so for me, that's the better. All right, let's go negative on this one. What position group got worse, if any, good sir?
I'm going with the big guys up front, the meat eaters out there in the offensive line. I think we got worse, and it just comes down to one position. You look at Michael Gentry, got heavily paid by the Denver Broncos. Congratulations for getting the bag there, Big Mike. But McKivitz is the sample size is super small. And there's some parts where you're like, okay, he wasn't noticeably being beat. And then, he got beat on almost 8% of his passing attempts. If you look at the stats, which is one of the top on the team as far as highest percentage of getting beat. So O-line is really, it really just comes down to one position. I think you look at we're in the best shape of our life, puff pieces time frame right now. But Aaron Banks apparently got even more in shape. You look at Spencer Burford got a bunch of nice plugs from the offensive line coach saying that this is his position to lose. He's not having to look over his shoulder this year. It really comes down to one man. I think the drop off more than people want to admit, Mike McGlinchey to McKivitz is going to be disastrous. You're looking at the first, week one, right? TJ Watt lines up on the left a lot. He's not going one-on-one with Trent Williams. He's going to be going one-on-one with McKivitz a lot. So I just think that it's going to be a situation where the team is going to have to not be able to just say, hey, we're fine there, right? They're going to be concerned, and I'm concerned as well. I'm not saying that our offensive line is going to be bad. I just say it just got worse last year. Yeah.
Right. Which, I mean, hey, it was clearly the best in the division last year, one of the best in the league last year. So a step back does not necessarily mean bad. I will say Zolksi is in agreement with you. It is the O-line. I agree in one sense and disagree in another. I agree that it's something to be concerned about. I think you have to be. With substituting Mike McGlinchey for Colton McKivitz, you're right. It feels like a significant downgrade. But I actually view it as, hey, you look at the strengths of McGlinchey versus McKivitz. And for McKivitz, it's better at pass protection, worse in the run scheme. The pass protection is where the most painful clips of Mike McGlinchey came out. It's where the rounds would go through on 49ers Twitter, and everyone would say these absurd things about Mike McGlinchey's skill set, calling him a bust, calling him, not worthy of being there on the starting line. And it was a lot of hyperbole, right? Obviously, the amount he got paid in the league shows you his value to other general managers around the NFL. I do think, though, he was better at run blocking, less so at pass blocking. With the Colton McKivitz switch out, that's the one I'm more concerned about, because I believe Kyle Shanahan can scheme around a deficiency in the run game. It's harder to do so in pass protection. I should suspect that we see a slight uptick from Aaron Banks and Burford in continuance, just being there at the same position. Now for Burford, getting all the snaps there. I would anticipate a little uptick there, and my hope is that it offsets that downgrade we had at right tackle. So I'm cautiously optimistic in the idea that we stay about the same on offensive line. So a slight disagreement with you there.
I just don't think that. How about them Niners is even close here with his take, which no, I
wanted to bring that in. Let's go.
And he's saying that it's a wash, and I people see the 5 plays a year that McGlinchey just gets absolutely demolished.
Yep.
Dude's 6'9". He's going to get bowled over eventually. Like it is what it is. Like the leverage is not there, but he was one of the top 5 run blockers in the league for most of his career on the Niners. There was multiple years that PFF graded him in the top 32. So that we had 2 tackles in the top 32. I don't know if you know this, Rob, but there was more than 32 tackles on in the league there.
That's absurd.
To say that he was just a crap pass blocker and we're going to have an upgrade on the pass blocking is absurd. The reason that McGlinchey was not in the starting lineup is because he's not as good. Or McKivitz is not as good as McGlinchey.
Right. When the two were both on the roster, McGlinchey started.
Yeah. So he's just not as good. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, you can't pay McGlinchey whatever he got. I think it was like 15.5 or 17.5 million, something more like that. You just can't pay that kind of money. Or they chose not to. I guess they brought in Hargrave, right? So they chose not to pay that type of money. They're going to go cheap. They believe in McKivitz because they obviously didn't draft an offensive lineman to replace him. They didn't draft a guard to move Burford out. So they really think they have something there. And to McKivitz's credit, Trent Williams said, hey, he would have been a better option than me against the Rams with my injury, right? Now, how bad was that injury? Obviously pretty bad if Trent Williams thought that somebody else was going to be better there, or maybe he's just pumping up his teammate. So I do agree with him, though, that saying that you can scheme things around Obviously, we saw that in 2019 where the offensive line was severely beat up. A lot
Right.
of short passes, a lot of scheme plays, a lot of screens and stuff like that to offset where the liability was. But there's no universe that McKivitz has ever been better than McGlinchey at anything.
Right. And I do think too, how about them Niners? So I find myself in between how about them Niners and your point of view as well, Randon. So I do not believe it was a wash. I think McGlinchey was an upgrade over McKivitz, and that's why he started. I do, however, acknowledge that this has been rumored that they tried shopping Mike McGlinchey before the season because they had confidence in McKivitz. But you have to take into account Randon's favorite thing to point out, which is the money. Like it's not just a question of, oh, Mike McGlinchey is the same as Colton McKivitz. No, you're looking at Mike McGlinchey makes a heck of a lot more money, and you're about to lose him in free agency versus someone you have under contractual control. Even though that individual is not as good, the asset you would get in return for McGlinchey and the money you would get back weighs into that decision. So I agree. He was shopped. At least that seems within the realm of possibilities. And I got to say, like, yeah, I would rather have McGlinchey back. Michael Salazar coming in.
McKivitz was on the roster when they decided to pick up his 5th-year option, which is 100% guaranteed money.
Exactly. That is very true. Right.
So if they thought he was even adequate enough to be on the roster, they wouldn't have picked it up because that's what I think it was 13 something million or whatever for his 5th-year option. So
I forget what it was. It was a lot. I know that.
So like if they thought he was even adequate or been able to coming off a quad tear, thought that he would even be close to the playability, they wouldn't have picked up the 5th-year option, and they did. So I'm not saying McKivitz I'm not saying that McKivitz can't do well. This is not a bash on McKivitz. This is saying that people bash McGlinchey all the time because of the highlight reel mess ups that he has where he gets demolished. But if you look at the stats, if you look at the pass run rates and where he's at, he's adequate with the league on the pass blocking, and he's elite run blocker. And we're going to miss that on the side, I think, because you got the stubby arms, McKivitz there trying to block first-rate pass rushers like TJ Watt. It's going to be a shit show week 1. And throughout the season, I believe, unless he's going to get better. And we don't know that until we see the games, but I lean on the side of non-optimistically cautious, I guess.
Yeah, no, it has the potential to be that disaster for sure. Michael Salazar coming in. McGlinchey was elite run blocking and above average in pass blocking. His biggest problem was mistakes in prime time at the worst moments, but McGlinchey did not make a lot of mistakes. I agree with that statement that the ones he made were so big, they got blown out of proportion, and people absolutely had the wrong idea about talent level. Also want to call out the sneakerhead coming in, Jimmy J, saying, hey, feels like forever since we've seen you guys. I couldn't be happier right now. The season is almost upon us. The season is almost here, but we are here today. That is absolutely a fact. All right, let me get into my feeling around worse. To me, this is a group that I was hyped on last year, and I'm still fairly hyped on this year. I'm just a little worried about the depth. For me, it is the edge position. Last year, you were looking at Nick Bosa and Samson Ebukam starting, Drake Jackson coming in as a rookie, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, and at the tail end of the roster, you had Alex Barrett, and Kerry Hyder was capable of coming inside, right? Obviously, that's a bad way to phrase it. Charles Omenihu also would slide over to the interior position. Much better way to say that. 2023, you're talking about Nick Bosa, Drake Jackson, Clelin Ferrell, and then this is where it drops off for me, Austin Bryant and Alex Barrett. You've lost some of your flexibility. Yes, you still have some flexibility there, but you've lost some of it. And you're talking about a guy like Austin Bryant. I could be wrong about this, but when I look at someone who couldn't hang on to the tail end and contribute on the Detroit Lions, even though they're an up-and-coming franchise, and I'm bought in on some of the hype for Detroit, to me, the idea of trading out Samson Ebukam for Clelin Ferrell, about a wash right there. Both far better at stopping the run and setting the edge than they are at getting after the passer. But then I look at the idea of giving up Charles Omenihu to bring in Austin Bryant. To me, that's where the downgrade is. and you've lost a guy like Jordan Willis who would bring in the occasional fantastic snap as well. So for me, this is a slight downgrade. You could actually say, depending upon Drake Jackson, that we upgrade the starting two, but depth has taken a hit.
I think if this is all speculation here, this one is pure speculation because there's a lot of upgrade possibility with Drake Jackson. And Farrell has that first round pedigree. Obviously, we know what our defensive line coach can do. So this is a lot of what ifs here, but on paper, you're right. I think there's a lot of mediocre depth that we're losing, like to where a guy can come in and make a couple snaps and then pop off the field. I don't think we're missing any high end player. It's not like we're losing a guy. I mean, right? Ebicom had 5 sacks, so it's not like we're losing a guy that really just came in and dominated. But the depth, you're right. I mean, if somebody got injured, just plug and play there at that point. Where this kind of goes away is Drake Jackson. This is solely up to him and how this position turns out to be. We know Nick Bosa is going to be that dude. And the interior defensive line got way better now that Kinlaw does not have to hold any weight. You look at Hargrave and Armstead, but I think you're right. I think the defensive end position is just a big question mark, which on paper, then at that point, with us not seeing any snaps, no games being played, you could definitely take as a downgrade.
Absolutely. And I do think Ian Sharp could be onto something here, talking about, hey, Kerry Hyder might actually play more outside this season than he did last. Certainly, you've got the extra body of Javon Hargrave that Ren is just talking about there. I'm with you on that, Ian. I think you could see more snaps for Kerry Hyder outside. And there's a lot of potential in those players that we brought in. To your comment again that, hey, Clelin Ferrell hasn't worked out quite yet and does have that first round pedigree. You're now going to pair him with Chris Kocurek. Things may be a little bit different in San Francisco. Let's get on to our next topic here. Where does this team match up in the NFC West? Let me just put this out first. Vegas has the odds as such. Now, I know this doesn't define who's going to end up with the best record. They're merely just handicapping it to corral the bets where they want them on team by team. But it is a fair reflection on how fans feel and how most media feel about these teams going into it. So San Francisco 49ers to be the NFC West winner are -172. So you'd have to bet 172 to win 100 back. That's how that would work out. Seattle Seahawks +218. Bet 100 to win 218. So almost a 2-to-1 difference between the first and the second place NFC West odds. Then the Rams drop down +867. And the Arizona Cardinals, if you want to take a flyer, +2537. Bet $100, get 25-to-1 odds. That is pretty freaking good. Now, I'm not laying that bet because I don't want those odds on the Arizona Cardinals, but man, that is the seller. So are you buying this? Are you with Vegas on how this sorts out? Where do the Niners belong in the matchup in NFC West?
I mean, the Niners went out and got every quarterback possible to hedge their bet on the beginning of the season. So the rest of the roster is top notch and the best in the division. You look at the Seahawks is really the only one. Where does Geno Smith, like, can he repeat what he did? They had a very good draft last year. It came out of nowhere. We were hoping that they would go into some sort of depression where we could mock Seattle for at least a couple years. So that did not happen.
They did not.
But there's a lot. Every team in this division has a question mark, right? You look at the Niners have their quarterback position. I think every question mark for this entire division is the quarterback, right? So you look at the Niners, don't know which quarterback it is.
Who is it? Yeah.
Can Trey Lance be the guy? If Purdy starts, is his arm ready? Can Geno Smith duplicate what he did last year, even though he's never done it his entire career? Where's Stafford at, even though he was a top 5 quarterback the year they won the Super Bowl? And then he had a back surgery. And then, little Leprechaun is coming off an ACL tear. So where, like, the whole division is quarterback question marks.
Little Leprechaun got me. Randon, you're killing me. I mean, that's a fair point. I honestly hadn't considered it from that angle of just quarterbacks. But when you look at that, And quite honestly, you see this in here, Harold. I haven't seen anywhere other than one, say, like media member who's put the Seahawks above the 49ers. I haven't seen any, betting outlets or anyone putting them above the 49ers. I have heard the occasional analyst doing it, but I think that's what you're looking at. You're looking at someone who says, I don't know what the quarterback situation is for the 49ers. And I know what Geno Smith did last year. I know Geno Smith earned himself a Pro Bowl vote, and he may be able to do it again. I'll say this definitively about where the 49ers lay in the NFC West. To me, it is very clear that there are two tiers of teams in the NFC West. There's the 49ers and the Seahawks, and there's the Cardinals and the Rams. The Rams have, destroyed that roster because they spent so fervently to get to the Super Bowl. And hey, you can't really fault them for the strategy. You could argue it freaking worked. The Cardinals are in some sort of rebuild mode, but to your point, the goddamn Seahawks just avoided that rebuild like a mother effer. And so there they are. The wide receiver core is freaking crazy, but their offensive line is maybe a little bit suspect there. And I honestly still need to see one more year from Geno Smith before I'm going to become a believer. So to me, Seattle seems to have obvious holes, whereas I would argue, and someone would come in and point out maybe the quarterback position, I would argue the Niners don't have obvious holes, that we will see a solidified quarterback coming into week one. And therefore, once that quarterback position is locked down, the roster for the Niners, to me, is absolutely a more talented one than Seattle. But here's the tricky question. Who do you see as the sneaky jump candidate? Who is the potential out of nowhere, like Seattle last year, where most people had written them off as a sub 500 team? They were not. They look to be a playoff team yet again. Who do you think is the sneaky one?
I mean, there's only 4 teams to pick from. It's got to be the Rams. I mean, Cooper Kupp was almost at 2,000 yards 2 years ago. And he was the number 1 receiver in the league over Justin Jefferson until he got injured and Stafford got injured, right? So, you're looking at one more year removed for Cam Akers. You got Cooper Kupp back to his thing. Van Jefferson, a lot of people don't realize, 800, 900 yards. He'll get the number 2 nod there. You're looking at a lot of team that would coming back from a lot of injuries. And if everything goes right, at least their offense will be good, right? And they have a good coach and all that kind of stuff like that. So that makes it there. I mean, if you're going, but if I want to kind of hit on the point of playing devil's advocate for Seattle, I mean, both their corners played really well last year. They got a 4th round stud at tackle. Both their tackles played really well last year.
Yep.
Geno Smith wasn't dropping deep bombs. He was just hitting everything that was short, consistent. 70% passing. They drafted Zach Charbonnet, one of the top running backs in the draft here. Who knows why they did that? Because, hey, maybe you're going to 2 running back sets. So then you have Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet in case somebody gets injured. They drafted Jackson Smith and Jigma. Their wide receiver core from 1, 2, 3 could be better than the Niners, in my opinion, depending on how Jackson Smith and Jigma pans out, right? Tyler Lockett ain't no snub, right? He had over 1,000 yards last year. So this team has a lot of positives going on. Wagner's coming back. Everybody thought Wagner was washed, had a high year last year. Where he was playing at, got a lot of accolades there. This team has a lot of pieces. And if you're looking at hey, you could see jumps from the Niners players. You could see a lot of jumps. A lot of these rookies made waves, and they could take that second year jump to where, Tariq Woolen could be an all pro instead of just rookie defensive of the year candidate. So I think that people, because of how we dominated that team last year in every instance, I think that people are kind of sleeping on them because the fact that they're not expecting second year jumps, right? No. You're looking at Jackson Smith and Jigma is an elite wide receiver, and he's going to be their number 3 playing out of the slot. Zach Charbonnet was one of the top 4 running backs in the NCAA, and he's backing up Kenneth Walker to where they could each give them 150, 200 carries and keep them sharp for the entire year and not have to bulldoze one guy over. And it just really, there's a lot of, if you're a Seahawks fan, there's a lot to like about that roster to where you could make the case for them to make that jump. I just think there's too many all pros on our side of the ball to make me feel confident about taking them in an actual betting standpoint. But you could make the case there. I do think the Niners do have a better roster. But if you were having a debate or open dialogue with me, you could make the case.
That's the one that I'm at, is like, hey, if you're going to talk about a team that might make a jump this year, I truly hate to admit it, because I live close to I am in the Pacific Northwest. I live close to Seattle. There are a lot of goddamn Seahawks fans around here. They are horribly annoying. But the damn Seahawks are the team in my mind that might be contenders. They might not just be a fringe playoff team, to your point of so many rookies performing well last year. Those bookend tackles that came through for them. Bookend tackles is maybe a little bit generous there, but if they get solid interior line play and give Geno Smith enough time, and Geno remains efficient the way that he was last year, added weapons, additional defenders, to me, the Seahawks become a pretty formidable team. Like, I understand why there are people out there standing on soapboxes talking about how Seattle might actually win the NFC West. They're trying to predict something that's unlikely to happen, right? San Francisco should be the chalk bet. Again, to your point, if I'm actually laying money on this, oh, it's Niners all day, even at minus 172. I will take it. We are winning the NFC West, but the Seahawks seem primed for something like that. Ian Sharp says Hawks look like a lock for second in the divisions. And Harold pointing out, hey, their draft picks also were graded well. Obviously, got to wait until you see the draft picks play, but Pete Carroll and that front office have done well drafting talent. They continue to restock the cupboards. They've made some good decisions along the way in parting with talent, gotten value back. I hate to admit it, but Seattle is a well-run franchise at this point. And it really pains me to say that, Randon.
That gum-chewing son of a bitch knows what he's doing.
That gum-chewing son of a bitch. He tries to destroy that gum. I don't even know if you can call that chewing, Randon. It's violence is what it is. It's a goddamn felony is what it is. All right, let's talk about quarterbacks, because what show about the San Francisco 49ers would be complete without bringing up the quarterback position? We've been talking about it ad nauseum for years now, and it seems like we will be until 2030. So that's just the reality. But let's start. We've got Trey Lance to begin with. Obviously, there has been a lot of speculation about the young gentleman, and some of it of, hey, what do his teammates think about him? Is he respected within the locker room? Is he liked? What do people think of the work ethic? And Kyle Juszczyk did come out and put out hey, he's beloved in the locker room. I then go on to see someone who uses that statement as the springboard to go in, hey, yeah, he's loved. Like, they like his personality, but they don't like what he does on the field. You never hear them talking about what he does on the field. That to me is kind of crazy to go on with that. So I want to ask you, what are your feelings on what you're hearing about Trey Lance? Do you think that if he is successful, he's a fit within that locker room and could be on the team going forward? Or is there some sort of chasm that has formed either with players or with coaches?
I think you see a lot in sports, and PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois, the guy that we just signed for the LA Kings, said during his free agency period or being traded, there was a bunch of rumors floating around that he could have easily squashed, and his agent told him not to. His agent told him to stay quiet. Juice went on and said, hey, like, I agree with a lot of your guys' takes, but this one was a flat out lie. You guys guessing why he wasn't at a basketball game? Like, yeah, you're talking about the dead of the season. Like, nobody's doing anything. Of course, you guys want to write about something. You're talking about why he wasn't he just wasn't available.
Right.
Like, he wasn't able to come.
Else.
He was doing something else. Like, he wasn't available. Like, he's absolutely beloved. He works his ass off. You see nothing about his work ethic. And from the time he got drafted to come in here, so he's putting himself in the best position to play. And it's just nothing but clickbait. Like, everybody's got an agenda. Exactly, Harold. Clickbait. Everybody's got an agenda.
Harold sees you, buddy. He's like, clickbait.
Everybody's got an agenda. Oh, this is this or this or that, and they want to win or they want to disparage people or do this. And I've never wanted to be off Twitter more because of 49ers Twitter.
God, it's so annoying.
All you people on Twitter are just toxic as all can be, and it's just I don't understand it. Like, none of you know what's going on. None of you know what's going on, and nobody knows what's going on. It's all the locker room, and I'll to the day I die, I believe this, being as an athlete, all I want to do is win.
Yes.
If Trey Lance wins me football games, Trey Lance is my quarterback. If Brock Purdy wins me football games, Brock is my quarterback. If Sam Darnold wins me football games, if Rob Schuh comes in and throws a left-handed pass and gets a touchdown, you're the quarterback. So
amen to that.
So it really doesn't matter. The dude comes in and puts in work.
Yes, unquestionably.
Where you look at where athletes have major qualms with people is if that's not being seen. If they're not coming in and putting in work, or they're prioritizing other things in their life over winning football games, that's not the case for Trey Lance.
No.
So all this other things going on, hypotheticals this, hypotheticals that, a lot of players just let that roll. And you're looking at it, it's coming to a head here. Like, this is what, year 3? Debo walks off that interview in Philadelphia, not only for the Philadelphia stuff, but for the Trey Lance questions. George Kittle or Juice got upset in another interview, I believe, with Rich Eisen, and he said, hey, he got George Kittle to come on the phone just because he was tired of answering Trey Lance questions. Like, we're beating a dead horse beyond a dead horse. Like, we brought him back to life with CPR, and then we're killing him again. Like, this is just nothing else to talk about right now, right? I mean, and
exactly,
and we don't know, and we don't know what's going on. Is Brock Purdy even healthy? Is Trey Lance even this? Is Trey Lance even that? I don't care, and we're not even going to know in training camp.
No,
right? We're going to see the slow
not
motion.
at all. We're going to get fake outs, right? We're going to get these one-off games that will send everyone in a tizzy, but the coaching staff isn't going to make a decision based off of one game.
You're going to see one slow motion pass down 40 yards, good receiver, and you're like, oh yeah, Trey Lance is him. Right? He's going to go 4 for 5 in the first preseason game, and Purdy ain't ready to go. Let's put in Trey Lance. Like, there's really no way to tell, and this is not a disparity against Brock Purdy, because I don't think he's been hated on, not even close to the amount that Trey Lance has been hated on.
Oh, not even close. No, he's the golden boy.
And so for Trey Lance, one, I wish him nothing but the best, and I actually hope he takes the job. Nothing to do with Brock Purdy. I just hope that he gets to be vindicated for the amount of work that he gets put in. But two, it's like, you don't know what is going on.
Yep.
Right. You, as much as Rob and I are honest with you about our lives and why we couldn't make this or we're sick or that, like, we don't tell you everything going on here, and we love you guys. Like, could you imagine, like, athletes don't tell us crap about what's going on with their lives and what's going on in the locker room and what's going on here and there. They have to do their media availabilities because that's how they make money, and that's part of being the job. But you're never going to get your true feelings about a player or a coach or this or that until somebody's retired. Right. And then there's no consequences there. George Kittle ain't going to go out and say, hey, Trey Lance sucks. I wish he wasn't on this team. I hope he gets traded, and then have to go in the locker room and see that player the next day. Right? Like, that's just not going to happen. So ultimately, for Trey Lance and all this update and all this speculation, I can't wait till September when we're in Pittsburgh and actually football is being played and we can talk about real things when it comes to the position, because it's just daunting.
That's a fact. And not to mention what George Kittle would face from John Lynch were he to say something like that and give away what the 49ers were planning to do at the position. I see a lot of people, not a lot, a couple of people asking about this. The Mayoko interview with Steve Young, that is not on our list of topics today. We haven't covered it yet. We don't have it on the agenda tonight, but I will attempt to make that the call-in show topic. So, Alan, if you have opinions on it, you can call in and you and I we'll talk about it. Harold, I see you in there asking about it as well. I'm always a fan of the Mayoko Steve Young interviews. They're always so quality. Steve Young is such a thoughtful dude in the way he responds. Matt Mayoko is a great individual to probe with those questions. Absolutely. I want to get to Bullpup's question here. Bullpup 33, a sneakerhead here on the channel, longtime supporter, says, Rob, how much better does Trey Lance need to be in order to take the quarterback 1 spot, assuming Brock is healthy? So that's the critical component there, is the last part of the statement, assuming Brock is healthy. I do not think in between now and week 1, if we're assuming Brock is healthy and therefore could start week 1, I do not think there is anything Trey Lance could do to grab the quarterback 1 spot. I think he can firmly plant himself at QB 2, and then an injury or an opportunity to play in the regular season might vault him up to that 1 spot. But you've got to listen to Kyle Shanahan when he directly talks about, like, he says this, I don't need to make a decision at the quarterback spot. The play on tape does that for me. The guys in the locker room know who the starting quarterback is based on the play on the tape from last year. If you dissect that comment, he's only talking about Brock Purdy. I mean, you're talking about that series of games that were electric to watch. Now, could Trey put something like that together? Yes, if given the opportunity. He just has had some of the shittiest luck ever with injuries derailing and Jimmy Garoppolo coming back, and the circumstances that played out set up poorly for Trey Lance to get the experience that he needed to prove he would be the quarterback one spot. But I will definitively say, I think there is nothing he can do to earn that quarterback one spot if Brock Purdy is healthy for week one.
Outside of Brock getting food poisoning, I mean, he's going to be, he's going to be the quarterback week one if he's healthy. Like, it's just, eight games or being undefeated and having the Niners be a top offense in the NFL, not one of but the top offense in the NFL during his time frame there. A lot of people want to throw out stats where they're comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. Get off your rocker with that. He's not even close to that level, but he was extremely efficient with the offense. Did he make mistakes? Sure. He's a 7th round rookie. He's Mr. Irrelevant. Everybody's going to make mistakes, but the offense never ran better with him. And now a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, Trey Lance hasn't had CMC and he's barely had Kittle and this and that. Those are all what ifs. You know, like, are you going to go to a girl that has been with you time and time again, cooked you dinner, brought home this or that, brought home a 6-pack, or are you going to go to a girl that's nothing but just hopes and dreams? No, you're going to go with your rock in the corner, right? And right now the rock in the corner is Brock Purdy. Even though there's a bunch of potential there with Trey Lance, and I firmly believe he can be the better quarterback of the two,
yes,
given the opportunity. But
I believe that too.
Let me ask you this question: does this have anything to do with the rope that Shanahan and Lynch are willing to give this team for this season? Obviously, aspirations are high for the Super Bowl. How much rope is there? Like, is it, hey, if Trey Lance just balls out all training camp and they go, hey, this is what we've been waiting for.
Right.
Let's give him 3 games and see what it is. Like, how much is there any rope, or are they just saying, hey, Purdy's our dude, he's healthy, it is what it is?
I think barring something to do with health, I don't believe that there's any rope. Now, if there's even a hint of Brock Purdy not being ready, that can open the floodgates. That could then be, okay, now we're going to give Trey Lance a shot, because I do think that if you take injury into equation, Sacktown Izzy could be absolutely right. If there is a delayed healing process, any re-aggravation, a new injury, I could absolutely see Trey Lance starting week one. And if given the opportunity to start week one, I could absolutely see him showing us why he was drafted where he was and holding it down from there. What I don't think there is a decision wherein the Niners say, you know what, let's give the first 4 to Trey Lance. I saw an article that presented the idea that maybe the Niners would say, hey, listen, we are going to be tight up against the cap. Trey Lance is going to have a guaranteed salary that is reflective of being the 3rd overall pick. If he's going to be our backup quarterback, that's untenable. So let's try and potentially trade him mid-season once we know Purdy is healthy, once we've seen what Darnold could do if he needed to step in as a backup. If we feel good about those two things, we could deal Lance and get some asset in return. Then I saw them say, well, you'd give him the first 3 or 4 weeks to sort of prove that because you could increase his trade value. I just don't think that's where the Niners are. I think they have their eyes on the Super Bowl. And right now, Kyle Shanahan seems pretty unshakable in believing Purdy is that guy so long as he's healthy.
I agree with that. I mean, I just think the thing is everybody's looking at with Purdy is all the time frames that everybody's talking about is best case scenario. And
right.
often best case scenario doesn't happen. Right now, best case scenario is a couple weeks before week one, right after the last preseason game. So he really isn't going to get any run in preseason. It's all going to be practice. And as Allen Iverson knows, that practice isn't the game. So
you talking about practice?
Yeah. So is that going to be the rust that they're willing to obtain? Are they willing to lose week one to Pittsburgh to let Brock Purdy shake off the rust? And then if the rehab doesn't go well, this is Tommy John, ladies and gentlemen. Right. It often doesn't go well with the rehab. And 80% of pitchers who come back from Tommy John throw slower than what they did before. And Brock Purdy didn't have very much arm strength to give up to begin with.
It wasn't a cannon.
No. So is he even going to be the same player, right? Because you're taking away from his weakness in his game, which then is a domino effect to every part of it, right? The timing, hitting receivers in rhythm, all that kind of stuff can be affected based off of the rehab and not having the arm strength necessary to throw the football the way he once thought, right? Because your brain is mentally prepared to make that reaction in a split second.
Yeah.
Hey, my entire life, my arm strength has been this. This is what I have available. And he's gonna have that instinct to throw the football, and it's not there. And it's gonna, you see pick six or a bounce thing. So I just think there's a lot of things in the rehab. I wish him nothing but the best, but everything that people are talking about online and in media is best case scenario, which
let me ask you this though. Let me ask you something. So obviously all of that is true. Timeline could be different. Injury could get re-aggravated. Surgery could be unsuccessful. Like all of that has to be on John Lynch's mind when he's looking at this quarterback room. Unproven as far as Trey Lance, but a lot of upside. All of those factors have to be in his mind. When you look at a trade scenario and the potential of moving Lance in the preseason and what you might get back versus moving Lance during the regular season, like how do you view the trade scenarios? If you're in John Lynch's shoes, what are you legitimately considering as far as playing with that quarterback room and potentially getting back an asset for Trey Lance?
There's zero he can do to increase his value, right? If Lance is on the field for 4 games and he balls out, you really trade him at that point? No, you're gonna roll with a hot hand, right?
Yeah.
And right now he has no value, right? You're only gonna teams trading for him. Teams trading for him are gonna go based off what they thought at the draft stock, right? So, there's teams that have potential. Obviously, Atlanta was rumored. Yep. I think the Commanders might be an interesting team here. Because new ownership. Congratulations, Commanders. Obviously, you see, I wish my owner would sell the gosh dang team. Congratulations for the Commanders to end that turmoil. Maybe they make a big splash, right? So I think you're looking at a lot of teams. Maybe you just be like, hey, Sam Howell ain't it. Like we went all the way through Cam. He ain't it. Let's bring in Trey Lance. Let's let Sam Howell, do a couple games. Let Trey Lance get used to the team there, and then let's go for it. But what I think the biggest thing here is that a lot of people don't really bring into account is let's take a look at next year's draft, right? Caleb Williams.
Who are the candidates that you could take next year for assets?
Caleb Williams is supposed to be God tier, right? Patrick Mahomes level prospect. Do you think any team that's in the gutter is really going to trade for Trey Lance knowing that they have a chance to get Caleb Williams? Probably not. So then you're looking at a team that's going to be drafting like 10 through 20 that needs a potential upgrade. Maybe a Vikings, hey, we don't want to pay Kirk Cousins anymore. Let's move on. Maybe another team here or there that has a good roster, but so they're not good enough to be a dumpster fire, but they're right in the middle. It's really a tough sell for me to think that any team is going to make a move for Trey Lance, knowing that not only is Caleb Williams out there as a potential phenom, but May for North Carolina isn't bad either. He's supposed to be a top 3 pick too. So teams that have needs there aren't going to be really willing to go out and say, hey, let's hitch my horse to Trey Lance, knowing that they have a chance to draft a potential phenom. And it resets the clock, right? Trey Lance's year 4 is next year. You have to decide on his 5th-year option. With that rookie quarterback, you can start over.
Yeah, and that 5th-year option is not going to be cheap. I do think you keep your eye casually on 2 teams, and shout out to Bay Area Baller for putting this out on Twitter earlier, but I agree with the logic. Minnesota, just that proximity to obviously where Lance went to school. He would be a popular individual there, but more so because of a relationship in our front office. The Tennessee Titans, when you look at Rand Carthen now there as GM, we don't necessarily know who within the 49ers was most enamored with Trey Lance. Certainly it could be the case where it was Rand Carthen standing on the table saying, no, I think we take Trey at 3. And if that's the case, maybe he still sees that value in Trey going forward.
But Rand Carthen just drafted Levis.
Right. To me, I don't think either. I don't think either scenario of trading him in the preseason or the regular season happens. I think Trey Lance is on the 49ers for this season.
100%. I don't think there's I don't think barring injury, but even if a player gets injured, are you really trading for Trey Lance? Like hold your season
there are
together?
other
Like
veteran options.
Yeah. So like, and to be honest with you, the Netflix show quarterbacks, I'm 100% Kirk Cousins stand now. Like that dude is a G based off that Netflix documentary. So
I gotta watch that, man. That is in my queue. All right, let's talk a little bit of training camp. As per usual, the Niners have started off with an injury because that's just how we kick off every training camp, is to put somebody on PUP. But we have Darrell Luter Jr. on the physically unable to perform list, which means, well, a couple of things. He went on PUP Tuesday. The injury is unclear at this point, and PUP is the one that is a football-related injury, and he's got 2 months that he can just come off of it at any time. Any point he's healthy, they bring him right off of the PUP. So until we have more information, it's tough to speculate on what it truly means for Luter himself. But the question becomes, someone else will get additional reps at a higher spot than they would have before, because Luter was, by all accounts, doing very well in practice. So probably would have earned himself maybe even some starting reps at the opposite side across from Charvarius Ward. Who do you think benefits most from this, Randon?
I don't think he would have got starting reps. Demo's my boy, man. That dude is the dog. He's the hyena out there. They brought in Oliver to play the nickel, so I think you're looking at Womack, right? So is a guy that started last year. I was really big on him. I called him starting week 1. He did start and then kind of got in the doghouse. Doesn't really know why. And then Lenore never gave that job back. You have drawing a blank on his name. The guy that was playing outside and then dropped off the face of the earth, Ambry Thomas, right? So that's 5 or 6 right there. So like, really, there's not really a spot for Luter, and Luter being that 5th round pick, somebody was going to have to lose their job that we already drafted. Now it allows him to maybe start the season on the IR. We don't know how bad this injury is. Is this a full training camp? Is it just the start? We'll see. But it opens the gap to allow Womack to be like, hey, like I'm not being kicked off this roster. I can have a good first 2 weeks. Womack or Ambry Thomas can say the same thing. Hey, I can have a good first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and this rookie ain't taking this job from me.
I think the roster spot that became a lot safer if the injury lingers, to your point, if he does stay on PUP, would be Ambry Thomas. I think that he had fallen down that depth chart further than Sam Womack did after starting off the season well last year. Certainly Quantrez Knight benefits a little bit. All of them benefit from additional reps that they wouldn't have gotten. But I agree with you. Charvarius Ward, Isaiah Oliver, and probably Diamador Lenore are locked in for your 3 starting corners. And so you're really talking about that 3rd outside corner spot. And Ambry Thomas, for most people, was really on that bubble. And now you have to consider him as hey, play well in preseason. You may earn yourself within 1 injury of starting yet again. And that's pretty wild if you consider it. All right. So that clearly benefits all the cornerbacks who get bumped up a little bit. Do you have any camp battles that you're most excited about going into camp where we will actually get footage of people playing football?
I think the good camp battle for me is going to be linebacker, right?
Oh, that's a good one.
Obviously, we have two guys that are heading up that, right? All-pro snub in Greenlaw and the best linebacker in all of football in Fred Warner are going to be starting there. But there's a lot of value here, right? They brought in Oren Burks to play special teams last year. The money's there for him to make the roster, so that's a spot there. McCrary Ball, they've kept him around, trying to give him future contracts to stay on the roster. So you obviously got to love him. 2 linebackers drafted in the draft. I mean, usually they keep around 5 or 6. There's a lot more guys there. And so the battle for spots, I would say Oren Burks is probably a lot based on the money.
I think so.
And
yeah, follow the money.
So, roster spots 4 through 6 are all up for grabs. And I think that it's going to come to the camp battle there. And you're looking at, okay, if you're 4 through 6, Oren Burks is not going to be a guy that's going to like take Fred Warner's spot if he's injured, right? So these guys are going to be guys that could potentially get some starting roles if Greenlaw, who's had injury problems, or Warner gets injured. And so it'll be interesting where they line up. Like McCrary Ball used to be a corner, right? He's like 220 pounds. So he's a small guy. He's going to be good in coverage. You have the captain for TCU. I'm dropping his name right now, but he was on a national contender for over 4 years, drafted in the 5th round there, 7th round pick as well in the linebacking position. So, man, this seems to put a lot of draft revenue in there, or equity, I guess we could say. And they probably expect both those guys to compete for spots.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty wild to have as many folks in that crowded freaking room as they do. Obviously, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Robert Beal, Curtis Robinson, Jalen Graham, D. Winters, Marcelino McCrary Ball. I mean, it is wild if you consider the potential ways in which this roster shapes out. ESPN having Robert Beal there, but Beal's probably going to be on the edge, I would think there. It's a fascinating room. Not the front end. You're not going to see someone, barring injury, unseat either of the starters there. But to your point, all of those back end spots are open. And if one injury does happen to a starter, those become really critical freaking components on the team. So I think you're spot on with that one. It blows my top battle out of the water. I'm still stuck on will our third round draft pick, who should have been a second round draft pick, in my humble opinion, Ji'Ayir Brown, will he win that starting role against Tayshaun Gibson and thereby free up the 49ers to use an extra roster spot elsewhere where they don't have to keep the veteran and the young rookie who maybe you don't want playing as much special teams as you would a standard rookie, because you're counting on him to take the next step and be your starter at some point. So that's going to be a fascinating one for me, mainly because I just want to see Ji'Ayir Brown out there balling. It sounds like the dude is going to be running at 100 miles per hour constantly, and I'm here to see it.
Yeah, Tig is an interesting option there, and I think that he can make that noise. Fans want their top picks to be able to play right away. Obviously, Moody is going to have that opportunity pretty much instantly.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's a kicker battle unless Moody's just absolutely terrible. Wouldn't it be the worst thing ever if the Niners carried 2 kickers because they don't want to give up their 3rd round pick?
That would be horrible.
But he's so bad in camp. So
that'd be like if we kept a 4th quarterback because we're like, well, eventually we might trade one of them, so we got to keep another.
So yeah, Tig is an interesting situation. I don't think they cut Gibson at all, just because where's the 4th guy in? They're going to keep 4 safeties. They always do. So where's the 4th guy there? But then you're having a veteran who you brought in and paid real money to sit in the bench. Right. So is that
a guy who might then go back to retirement at that point, right? He might walk away if he's not the starter.
Is that a trade for futures? And then you have a rookie back there. Like, where is that? And then, or the Niners have the same view as the quarterback position, and they're like, hey, we're going to play Gibson. Tig can play both Hufanga's and Gibson's position. If anybody's injured, we have a legit backup, and he's going to play special teams. Right. So like is that where their thought process is going into next season? I think they're probably going to roll with that. Unless Tig just blows the doors off of camp, I think Gibson starts week 1.
I think that is very fair. A fair assessment, a fair assertion. Rich Kelt's coming in. Good to see you, Rich. It's good to see all these names that like it's been a month or more since we have seen. Bullpup coming in to say, hey, I want to see who will be tight end 2. As do we. Randon talking about that one as an upgraded room. It's only an upgraded room if those rookies make the roster and unseat the guys who were in those seats last year. So I am anxious to see that as well. Will it be a flip-flop between the true draft picks as to who is that tight end 2? All right, we're closing this thing out on some early predictions here. Are there any predictions that you have here, Randon, to start off with? Otherwise, I could jump in with one that's not a big one, and then one that I think is an exciting one to do an over-under, if you will.
I'll let you roll, man. Let it cook, as they say.
Okay, here it is. This one, people are going to say, dude, you've said this before. And I have. I mean, the first part of it. But I honestly believe in a contract year without the pressure of starting and behind Javon Hargrave and the rest of that line, we finally see enough from Javon Kinlaw for him to earn a second contract in the NFL. But it ends up being with another team. And that's the reality of like a guy that just finally breaks out in that last year of his contract. More often than not, that's going to send you to free agency. And that means if it was the harbor of great things to come, then your first team suffered through the rough years and the next team is going to get the production. I'm not convinced that it's going to be a long, fruitful career for Javon, given the lingering issues he has had with his knee. I do think he gets that second contract. I do think it's with another team. I'll be a little sad when that happens, but 3 years down the line, if he's still struggling with some injuries, the Niners will probably be relieved that they didn't give him that second contract.
That's pretty bold, my friend. That's pretty bold right there. I have no hope, glimmer, twinkle for Kinlaw to do anything. So if that were to be the case and we had some real production outside of Hargrave, I'd be ecstatic.
Well, I mean, that plays into my next over-under here because I came across this stat and I knew it to be true going into it. But I will tell you, it was one that you read again and you're like, really? Really? That's what happened for the Niners last year with this dominant D-line? The 49ers had 3 sacks by interior defensive linemen last year. 3. How big of a difference does Hargrave make with the interior pass rush? If I set the over-under at more than double, if I set it at 7 sacks for interior linemen, are you taking the over or the under in that one? And how
Over.
far over or under?
Over. That's not even a thought. Over. He had 10. I think he had 10 and a half last year on his own.
Right.
Armstead ain't going to get blanked again. So
he can't.
So if you were to have me set the over under where I would have some qualms.
Yeah.
Like
what is it?
Some qualms would be like 14 and a half would be my.
Ooh, that's bold. I like Harold's prediction here of over 10. It's way over 7 for me. I'm going over 10. You said 14 or 14 and a half. Where'd you put it?
Like if you were asking me to put like a line where like I would be hesitant to make a bet on it, it would be like 13 and a half, 14 and a half, that kind of area there. Yeah.
That feels right. I mean, I think I'm taking the under on that one just because I believe, again, the vast majority of sacks will come from Bosa. We'll have a better supporting cast. We'll be closer to that sack record that I predicted we would get last year. That didn't happen. But, man, it's tough to see a jump like that. But to your point, if Hargrave continues along the path that he's been doing, he's going to get more than halfway there himself. To Harold's question of 10, Hargrave is going to pass that on his own. Rich has a prediction. Drake Jackson, Hargrave, and Bosa become the first ever 49er trio to get 10-plus sacks each. 49ers' last duo was 98. Bryant Young was a half sack away from it being a trio. That's wild that Bryant Young was the missing piece that didn't get to 10 in 98. Man, Andrew agreeing that 10 is that magic number. Sean 951 Niners in the house. Good to see you, Sean. Longtime sneakerhead since the beginning. If Drake Jackson can ball out opposite of Bosa, then Armstead and Hargrave will eat 15 combined. So he's taking the over on the 14 and a half if Drake Jackson can ball out there. That is a big one. That's a big question mark.
That was going to be my prediction there. I was going to say 2 Niners have over 10 plus sacks this season.
Man.
So that I glad you brought it up, which brings me to my second prediction. I think the Niners will finally have 2 1K wide receivers this season.
Oh my goodness. Who's it going to be? Are you going to make the bold strike as to who ends up with 1,000 or are you just leaving it there? Teaser.
I think man, Debo just seems possessed this season. I love Ayuk, so I'm going to go Debo, Ayuk, and I think Kill's going to be short, but I think Debo will have over 6 touchdowns. I think he'll be, especially if Purdy's the quarterback, I think Kill will still be used in the red zone like he was the second half of last season, but Ayuk's on he's going to be earning his 5th-year option / contract negotiation points here. Debo openly admitted that he was not good enough last year. He's done nothing but get his crap together. So you look at the pace for Purdy going into last season was like 3,800 yards. So you could see $2,000 from Ayuk and Samuel, maybe 600 to 800 from Kittle, and a bunch of other stuff from other players. But I think you could see two receivers over 1,000 yards. The bold take would be one receiver and CMC get over 1,000 yards. That would be a super bold take coming in from a running back. He's done it once in his career, I believe, and that would be a huge take from him. But I think Ayuk is just ridiculously good, and I think he pushes that envelope this year. He was the only 1,000-yard receiver last season. So
right, and that one I predicted. I said Kittle would also have 1,000 yards last season. Didn't happen. I think you're spot on with 2,000-yard receivers, 2,000-yard, maybe not receivers, but pass catching individuals, because I do think you got to throw Kittle in there as a possibility, and McCaffrey. You have 4 people that could legitimately hit 1,000. Brandon Ayuk feels close to a lock if he is healthy this season. Debo feels like he's charged up and ready to go. George Kittle is certainly capable of a 1,000-yard season, and Christian McCaffrey is as well. So it is wild to believe that the Niners are in that place where you could pretty easily get 2. You might even squeeze out a third, but that's crazy talk. All right,
what's crazy is that, like, say like all 4 of those guys get like 850 or 900 yards. That's still like 3,700 yards. And then you have like a bunch of other guys like, tic tac here and there. Like if you were to say right now, oh, Purdy or Lance throws for 4,200 yards and nobody has over 1,000, I'd laugh in your face. But that's a possibility with how good everybody is on our team.
It distinctly is. It's kind of crazy. Okay, people in the chat are making predictions. How about them Niners says prediction? Kalia gets 4 sacks. That is bold. Ji'Ayir asking, hey, Ji'Ayir 56, good to see you here in the chat, says, how confident are you that Drake Jackson will take that next step? Not very. That's why I was advocating for us to get another veteran edge. I'm hopeful, just not super confident. Sean 9519ers sneakerhead here on the channel. Bold prediction. Only if Purdy plays all 17. Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, all 1K club. That is a seriously bold prediction. I think it's entirely freaking possible. Harold coming in, bold prediction here. CMC has 1,000 receiving yards and 1,000 rushing yards. Yet again, let's fucking go. Rich Kelt's pointing out the last 1K wide receiver duo, ironically, was 1998, unlike 98, where we missed the 310 sack club by a half a sack with Terrell Owens and Jerry motherfucking Rice, the greatest of all time.
I know he said wide receiver duo. I wonder if there was ever a year where like Vernon Davis and a wide receiver got over 1,000 each. Did Vernon Davis ever get over 1,000?
I believe there was one season where he got over 1,000, but I do not think that we had. I mean, it would have been him and Crabtree, and no, I do not think we had a 1,000 with
Vernon Davis.
Crabtree.
Never got over 1,000.
Oh.
His best year, he had 128 targets, 78 receptions for 965 and 13 tugs.
So close. Who was the what was Crabtree's receiving stats in that particular?
In 2009, we had no wide receiver over 1,000 yards. Vernon Davis was the best. Crabtree had 625. Yeah.
Man, CJ Gray in the house, sneakerhead here on the channel. What's up, CJ? Great to freaking see you. CMC 2023 equals Falk, Marshall Falk 2001. Man, I am excited for this season. I'm excited for this show to continue on. This was a great episode. I appreciate everybody that was here, everybody that was in the chat, everyone that had those contributions. Do us a favor and hit the like button on the way out there. Amplify the signal for us. Randon's information, you heard him talking about the Hockey Royalty podcast earlier. It's all down below in the description of the video. Randon and I will be back on a weekly basis talking 49ers, and we hope that you all will be here with us. Thank you all very much for being here. And Randon, as always, thank you so much for being a part of this fantastic freaking show with me, brother.
Appreciate you, my man. Appreciate you. And your Sharks blew the draft pick. They should have took Mitchkov out of Russia, but
Raphael5629er says, great show, gentlemen. I agree. CJ Gray says, great to see y'all. Time for actual football. Oh, man, I cannot wait. Sean9519ers 2023 is on the come. Can't wait for the Sneakerhead show again. Harold, Roger Craig for the next show. We're doing the Steve Young interview, and we're talking Roger Craig. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Until then, you all know the drill, even though it's been a little while. Cheers, faithful.